I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. Welcome again to Chairwaves. My guest today is a Colorado chair, a Denver chair. Always love to have my Denver folks represented well. Mr. Lance Vieira is my guest today. Welcome, Lance. So good to see you, as always.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Always a pleasure running into you, and actually I can't believe that it's taken us this long to do this. So I'm glad to see you here. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's good. It's rough that it's right after my Broncos got beat yesterday, but
Oh boy.
Going into San Diego, I'll get a chance to see you live there. So I'm looking forward to that.
We will get to see each other live in San Diego during Chair World, and fortunately, the Chargers have been long since eliminated from. Well, I guess they're Los Angeles now. I keep forgetting that. Like they
Right,
don't
me
belong
too.
there.
I know. Yeah.
But anyhow, that was a rough game yesterday against the Patriots. For those of you that are not. That are unfortunate or I guess fortunate today not to be Broncos fans. So actually this is a great segue, because what we saw in the game yesterday was essentially a number of mistakes were made by the Broncos in the first half, and the weather in the second half essentially made the game unplayable. And you always think that you can sort of make up for those miscues. Well, hey, it's still early. We can still do this. But then the rest of the game sort of gets taken away sometimes. And for you, as a Vistage chair, and as somebody who has expounded extensively and often about football as a metaphor for life, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, being a diehard, so I am a diehard fan. Most kids grew up, going to church on Sundays. My dad we went to Mile High Stadium, and we've had season tickets since 1968, and so.
Amen, brother.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that was our family time. That's where Mom made fried chicken and took it to the game, and we all went as a family. And it was his family and his brother's family, and so we come from a perspective that it's like, it's bigger than life. It's almost too big. So that's the bad part. But from a football perspective, I've been a football coach for almost over 30 years. I think the difference sometimes is, one, you got to have experience, but you also got to have wisdom, and you got to be able to adjust. And I think that what the Patriots were able to do is to kind of hang in there long enough and let Denver make the mistakes, because they had a backup quarterback, and in the NFL game, it's very, very reliant on that leader, that guy right there. And if he's not there all the time, it's all about taking reps. And so what we learn in life is that, one, the difference between being really, really good and almost the best is probably the smallest things. And it usually comes down to reps, which I consider how you build grit. You build grit because you do it over and over again, and you got used to doing the hard stuff over and over, so you don't have to think about it anymore. And that's what we found. In Denver, he had the opportunity to take a lead. Peyton's a great coach, but he's not from here. He doesn't realize that the weather can change in the second half. And if you don't take the points in the playoffs, it's going to come back and haunt you. And we
It
had many
was.
years. We had a guy named Dan Reeves here that
Yep.
he did those little things and he won a lot of games, even when we probably didn't even belong there. He was able to really coach the game, and take it to another level.
And yeah, I was. I wasn't at the game yesterday. I was in the parking lot. Actually, I can see Mile High. I live 4 blocks away, so I
Oh,
see it from the
cool.
balcony and I hear all the noise.
Yeah.
Um, what do you say to a business owner who is in that situation where they sort of end up feeling like circumstance took away their opportunity?
Mm, that's interesting, and it's very common. It's not like you don't hear that. You hear that a lot. And if anybody's really honest about it, and they really do some soul searching, there's probably many times that people either are able to get through that or it actually stops them. They get stuck in a rut. And I would say, and this is just because over the last 3 years I was blessed to find Vistage, is that you got to be able to, one, look in the mirror and point your thumbs at yourself instead of at circumstances. See how you are going to adjust. And here's the thing, you're not going to do it all on your own. And if you think you are, that's probably your biggest problem. You got to figure out a way to get in around a trusted group of knights at the round table that have been through the same thing that you're going through, even though it's a whole different industry, and you'd be surprised how many people have done something similar, or many times it's almost exactly the same. And they may not be able to tell you what to do, and nor do you want that. As a good leader, you don't want somebody telling you what to do, but you definitely would love hearing, examples of what you're going through and what did they do and what worked and what didn't work. And then you're going to obviously, make your best decision given on you because nobody knows your business better than you do.
And when the proverbial snowstorm rolls in, hopefully you're ready for it.
Yeah, and with the proverbial snowstorm is, gosh, isn't that life? I mean, wow, that is so much about what really happens. You plan for the day to day, like, hey, if everything's working, this is what we do. Here's our strategic plan. This is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna come at it. And then all of a sudden, March rolls around and something hit, something that you weren't expecting or you didn't plan for. Now, how are you going to adjust? And I think it's those type of decisions. Sometimes you know what to do, sometimes you don't. But even if you know what to do, the best thing to do is to run it by somebody. And then you all of a sudden they're like going, well, I think you should do this. And then you're like, in your gut, you knew exactly, yep, I'm right. I know what to do. I'm going to go do it. And you feel better about it. Because here's the other key: when you're a leader, sometimes the worst thing you can do is get so caught up in that one decision that it takes your life away. And the best of that make the most, how would I say, the best decisions more often are the ones that take some time for themselves, so they actually get some sleep. They actually get, they can feel better about the decisions that they're making.
You, as I mentioned, we've talked before about your belief in sort of the football as life um, metaphor, and actually something else I'll say is that, and having done a lot of these interviews now, I've had more than 70 Vistage chairs on this podcast,
Awesome.
and there are a number of shall we say, careers or experiences that that many Vistage chairs have in common, and one of them is coaching sports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell me how the your experience as a football coach and your belief that football is an apt metaphor for life. How have those things informed how you work with your group?
Boy, just it's not even. it's not even a question how closely related. I was kind of the blessing and the curse is I almost had like two careers going on simultaneously. And one was a career working up the corporate ladder and starting businesses and selling them and being that C-level suite type of executive. But that was kind of what I had to do, and that I was good at it. I went to college. I did all the training to be there, but my vocation simultaneously was out on the football field with young men at a very pivotal time in their lives. And so the thing that I found more often than not, and it might even insult some people, but I think what you find is that there's a lot in common. I mean, what a young guy is going through trying to be a part of a team in a very difficult part of life, like where do I fit? Am I an imposter? All that kind of stuff. I mean, then go into leadership and look into the leadership of businesses throughout the world, and you'll see that those leaders have many of the same challenges. I look at in order to lead, sometimes you're leading people. Sometimes in coaching, you got the best team. You got the best talent. You're just lining them up. But many times you don't. And so how are you going to teach that team to not only believe in what you're doing and follow this and find these little successes that it takes and become something bigger than their own name? In high school, they don't put the name on the back of their jerseys. It's all about the name on the front of their shirt. And I think it's a great training ground for being part of something, a team. I think the companies that actually really take off and do it, they run more like a team than they are just an organization.
And and actually it's kind of a fun opportunity that you and I are having this conversation after that game, although I think we both would have really wanted it for it to go a bit differently.
Yeah, another way. Yeah.
But I think in business, we've all had the experience as folks that run businesses, manage people, and certainly you've had this experience not only in working with business people, but also as an actual football coach. Having that experience of essentially having to take a new person and give them the ball in a less than ideal situation and look for them to step up. And we saw we saw what can happen in those situations when it doesn't go terrifically. But how do you go about preparing your whether it's your team or your Vistage members for that eventuality where you've
Yeah.
got to pull somebody off the bench and make sure
Yeah.
that they're prepared?
Yeah. I feel strong about this, and it's all about how you build your bench. How do you develop your employees? How do you buy into the whole idea that there's both professional and personal development that goes into the role that's going to be on your team? When you're coaching on a coaching staff, your real team is your staff. You're coaching your staff. You let your staff coach the players on the team. It's very much like in a real good organization. If you think you can do it all, you're crazy. Those who delegate the best and those that are able to monitor that delegation to make sure that you're making progress, those are the ones that seem to be able to do the things that are necessary to not only go there and get there, go fast, but to stay there the longest and to have what I would call consistent success. When you here's the one thing I would say from yesterday's game. The Broncos coaching staff should learn that said, Stidham got no reps all year. And so all of a sudden on the biggest game, on the biggest stage, to demand that of him, they didn't set him up for success. Now, in their defense, they didn't have that many games that they won by a lot of points. It seemed like we had to win a lot of games at the very last second all the way through the season so that he didn't get his opportunities. But I think what you're going to see as they go down the road, at least if they've learned from their mistakes and they actually point thumbs at themselves, they're going to say, you know what? If we get up by 21 points and it's in the fourth quarter, we better start playing some backups. Because we got to look at this thing, because I thought we were blessed to have a guy like Stidham to be able to come in and play because he's that good. But obviously, even that good, you got to have the reps. You got to be able to have played the role, make the decision with the bullets flying, and that's kind of hard to replicate other than being in it.
Yeah, the speed of the game when you're in it is different, whether you're playing
Yeah,
football
or business. Yeah,
or whether you're trying to prepare for something big in at your
yeah,
company.
and it's important. It's a culture of, can you accept failure as a learning, as a tool? If you got yourself so brass tight so that one person makes a mistake that you can't repair yourself from it, then you got to really look at these type of things, because the way you build the bench is you got to let them fail, and you got to let them fit. And then, obviously, if it doesn't matter, it's not the AFC Championship game. Let them fail during the week. Let them fail during a couple of things. Let them get to the point, because what you find is those really good young leaders, or leaders that really want the ball, they just need to have it more often, so that when they could take it to a whole nother level that you can't do. And that's who you want around you.
I'd love to change gears for just a moment, and although this has been
Yeah,
very
perfect.
enjoyable, how did you come to Vistage?
Wow, I thought I was I was working with an organization that is a 501c3 nonprofit organization here in the Denver area, that is largest provider of Head Start, which is um, early child care, early learning. That is free. It's free. It's government funded for those below the poverty line, and I thought I was going to do that for, I was going to head out to the pasture, and that was going to be my last gig. And things kind of changed during COVID, and we did a lot of things to try to change that organization, and it's still viable today. It's just a total different entity. It just kind of begged that I was going to change direction, and I was doing some consulting, uh, and then Vistage found me, and they said, you got a really unique background. You got both corporate, you got entrepreneurial, you've started things, you've ran things. You got to be a C-level type of guy, and they talked me into heading down this road of being a Vistage chair. And yeah, so actually here in February we'll be embarking on our third season as the team that I've just built here in Denver.
And how many of your members have been released into free agency, or
None so
you keep them
far.
around?
Knock on wood. You just never know. I mean, you can't take that personal either. Some things just work a certain way and sometimes don't. But all of my foundational members are still there, and wow, it's just a magic. I wish I would have had Vistage. I mean, I started an organization. I sold it. I sold it because I had to, not because I wanted to. And I think if I would have had my team together, that the issues that we process and the way we dig in and the way we take care of each other, I'm certain they wouldn't have let me sell it, because I think I was about 180 days too early. Otherwise, I would have been looking at life a little bit differently right now.
Is that right? Um, it would have been a skybox at the
Yeah,
stadium.
yeah,
You'd be up at
yeah.
the
I wouldn't have
club
been down
level.
on the sideline. I'd have been up in the skybox.
Yeah. Um, so tell me about your group. You have a small business group, uh,
Yes.
and and those groups are a little bit different. And typically, and certainly it's not everybody's story, but typically, uh, Vistage chairs, many of them like to start with a chief executive CE group. What led you down the
Yeah.
path of the SB group? What did you see there? what about that made you say, this is where I'm going to plant my flag?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know I was going down that path. I think my recruiter, she said that there's these two different ways of going, and we talked about both of them. And I think that Denver had an opening. They needed a small business person really bad. And so when I started my build, I didn't realize I was building for an SB until we had some meetings or something that came up and they said, "Hey, you're building this SB." I go, "I am." you know, so I didn't really know, but then when I talked with the vice president and they said, "Well, you could have your pick. We thought that's the way you wanted to go." And I said, I don't know what would be right or what would be the best way anyway, so let's just stay down this path. And so I'd say that the start was maybe on accident, but what I find is that being part of something bigger is that I was led down the path that was really a good path for me to go, at least to get started here in Vistage, because I really identified with the more entrepreneurial type of SB leaders, because they traditionally are smaller size businesses, but my team, most of them are over 5 million at this time, because what they do is they go, 5 million and under, that's an SB, and then over is like a CE group. Most of my team would probably qualify as a CE group right now, but you build this bond, and it's not Lance Vieira's team, it's their team. They tell me, they run the show too, and it's actually really cool, because I like to be that facilitator, but for the most part, we're building stuff that they use in their businesses every day. We're helping them make more decisions, and I like the way that a lot of them are. I've leaned in so much. That's what's kind of required to be on our team.
And you've got a lot of your folks you reported just came off of their best year ever.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, obviously, Vistage is probably a part of it. You're not you're not going to sit there and pat yourself on the
Mm-mm.
back and say, "Hey,
No.
that was me, Coach of the Year, baby." But genuinely, what do you ascribe that to?
First and foremost, they're just very talented people. We got you know the leaders that we have on this team, and the leaders that you have on every Vistage team, they're the best of the best. And then as you get a group, a round table of the best, and they all bring in their certain expertise and they're able to run them off. I think we've talked about that as group members, that they really liked having, the ability to, get some help or just outside look at things, you know. But to say that it was all Vista, I think, one of the things is I do this exercise where we talk about an on-purpose year and we go through this whole questionnaire. And one of the questions is who made the biggest difference? What's a relationship that you have that made the biggest difference in your life this last year? And I was blessed to have a number that said it was me. And that's humbling. That's an honor, and that's humbling that you're even mentioned in that. Just knowing each other for 2 years or so, that you're making that much of an input, because that isn't the goal. The goal is absolutely to help people and to give back to society, and just make sure that when you have a leader of a small organization, think about it, like 92% of all business transactions that happen in America are small businesses,
That's right.
and these guys are hiring people and they're taking care of communities. And when I was a football coach, that was my chance to give back to communities. But I'm telling you, from a Vistage perspective, when you got a solid CEO that now has really good grounded, making good decisions, they're feeling good about it, the organization is flowing, and they're feeling good about it. Hey, it's special.
Last question I'm going to ask you, and I imagine that this is important to you and why you said it. But in your bio, you describe yourself as a son of God. I for one, am the progeny of much lesser deities. Um, but I imagine that that's meaningful to you. Can you describe what that does mean to you?
Just my faith, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, just to me, it's all about the greater glory of God. Just everything that I do is kind of steered from that direction. People laugh at me because I do have my 3 F's, of my priority, and there's faith, and then there's family, and then there's football. But no, listen, when I keep talking about being part of something bigger than oneself, I mean, there's no other better way to even talk about that when you're a son of God, and you've got faith, and you're just part of something that you were steered towards. When I was coaching football, in putting in the time that I did, I really looked at it as my vocation, my personal ministry. I'd be a horrible preacher or minister or priest. I mean, there's no way, I would have been horrible at doing that. But I'm always trying to figure out how can we make this world better? How can we help those that are struggling a little bit, or how do we help people that are, how do we help each other find our best selves? And then not just our best selves, but how to tap into it when you need it the most. And my spiritual journey helped me get there. And especially from a young man football perspective, I always thought I had a screw loose because I wanted to tackle and hit people all the time, and it took me a long, long time till like my mid 40s till I finally figured out that God even loved me too. And so I tried to help those kids that I coached figure that out too. It's like you were built in His image too, and you're a good person. You're all right. We're going to channel your energy a little bit better, and I think that it's helped me care. I care so much. I think my strength is my heart. And I think that when you finally come around to that and realize that what you can do with when your heart's in the right place, it's amazing.
That's wonderful, and well said. And I appreciate the distinction of calling yourself a son of God instead of the son of God. Different things, I guess, if you're of that faith. Lance, this has been terrific. If folks want to get in touch with you, if they have questions about the intersection of football and business, if anybody knows how to teach Sean Payton how to use a weather app, if they have questions about your Vistage group, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can email me which is lance.vieira. The last name is Portuguese, so it's hard, but it's V as in Victor, IEIRA at vistagechair.com. That's a really good place. Or, hey, my phone number's all over the place anyway, so I'll give you that too. It's 720-394-7789, and that's my cell phone. That's direct. And just get in touch with me. Vistage is an amazing place. I have an amazing team, and we're always open to add great members. And so, get in touch with me if you have any interest.
Lance, thank you for being a wonderful guest. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you too. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.